Hi, this is Dan and Lexi from Dan Schultz Outdoors, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers.
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beasley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
I'm Jay. That's Skill. From Jay's Way, keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Callan, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shug here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
Ethan here, the Avid Outdoorsy guy, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Callan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Tonight's episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small-batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, hello and happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. My name is Dennis, also known as CANOEHOUND, and if this is your first time visiting us tonight, well, thank you very much. And if you're watching a replay of this broadcast, thanks very much for tuning in when you can. That's always a good thing in my book. Let's see here. We are live every Tuesday evening here at 7 p.m., and you know what? The train ride just keeps continuing on, so we're having a lot of fun. Let's see here. Before we get into speaking with tonight's guest, and while the chat populates over there, I'm just going to get into a few news and update items here, and then we will get on with our interview of Marty Morissette. Let's see here. For those of you that missed last week's episode, we featured Yours Outdoors in the Halliburton Highland area. Founder of Yours Outdoors, Barry Martin, along with Martin Pine and Jolene Thomas were on the show, and they were sharing all kinds of interesting stories and information, and giving information about the programs that Yours Outdoors offers. They have all kinds of great outdoor workshops, 4-season, a lot of great things if you're an outdoor enthusiast and you're looking to brush up on skills or learn new skills. They're the ones that you want to check out if you happen to be up in that area, or if you want to make a little weekend vacation or something like that. So by all means, if you missed that episode, feel free to check it out. It's in our past episodes playlist, and you'll find that there along with 120 other episodes of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show. So a great way to get caught up if you're just new to the channel here. Last week I mentioned that Algonquin Outfitters was once again hosting the Banff Mountain Film Festival. That there actually starts tonight. The first night of the 3 nights is tonight. You know what? Tickets are still available for tomorrow and for Wednesday tomorrow and Thursday. And you know what? If it's something that interests you, feel free to check out their website. The link to the Banff Mountain Film Festival is in the description below. So by all means, check it out. You can buy your tickets through there as well. And you know what? Go have a good time. From what I've seen of all the trailers, there's some really good action-packed film there. So by all means, check that out if you can. This past week, the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show, which is happening on February 24th to the 26th, just released their show seminar schedules for the 3 days, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Some notable presentations by past guests of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show include Friends of Temagami will be presenting on Friday and Saturday. These are on various stages throughout the event as well. Kevin Callan, Brad and Leah Jennings, Sean Rowley, David Bain, and myself will be doing presentations on the Saturday. Most of those will be on the Adventures in Paddling stage. I believe Kevin Callan will be on the big stage. Camper Christina is doing presentations on Saturday and Sunday. Always a pleasure to be checking out her presentations. Sue Shepard and Ben Stacy will be presenting on Sunday. And then Hap Wilson will be on Friday and Sunday at the show as well. And then, there's a couple more here. And lastly, we have one of the main big draws of this year's Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show on the stage on Saturday will be Les Survivor Man Stroh. So by all means, if you're interested in that there, be sure to go on to the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show. You can buy your tickets now. And you can set up your whole schedule of how you want to view the show, checking out the vendors, the many vendors they have there, and then also checking out, some of the great seminars that are going to be presented there. As I mentioned, I will be on stage myself at 2:45 at the Adventures in Paddling stage. So I hope to see many of you in the crowd. You know what? I'll always have some goodies to give away there as well. So I hope you come on over and say hello, and then check us out at the Kid Products booth as well. So it's going to be a fun weekend. Let's see here. I'd also like to shout out my channel members now. And first I'm going to start with iTime there for supplying me. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my mouse here. Thanks to iTime for buying coffee for tonight's show. Much appreciated. I appreciate your support. If anybody ever wants to buy Canoe Hound a coffee, which I am a bit of a coffee junkie, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/Canoe Hound, and that would be greatly appreciated. Not necessary, but greatly appreciated. And then, of course, I have to shout out all my my channel members. I'm going to leave you drifting across the bottom of the screen there for a little bit, but without your support, the show probably financially wouldn't be moving along, because it does cost money to produce this show. Subscriptions and gear and stuff like that, but you guys have all heard it all before, and I won't get into that. So by all means, thank you everybody down there for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Let's see here. We do have quite a few birthday wishes this week. It's starting to catch on. Everybody's starting to send me emails about getting some birthday wishes out there. So let's go through them. Happy birthday to past guest. Let's see here. We got Tim Good from the podcast Super Good Camping. Happy birthday to you, Tim. And just for those of you that don't know, maybe you missed it, but on their podcast last week, I was actually the guest on their show, and we had a great half-hour conversation, and I had a lot of fun. Got to learn a little bit about Pamela and Tim besides what we did with the episode of the show here, but they got to learn a little bit more about me too. So thanks very much for having me on your podcast. It was a great time, guys. Let's see. Happy birthday to longtime followers. Evan Lefevre. I know Evan's in the chat here tonight. Happy birthday. Throw some birthday cakes in there for all these people. And then longtime follower Paul Hoy, thank you very much, and happy birthday as well. And a special birthday wish to a friend and follower, Sabina Lacasse. Happy birthday, Sabina. Yeah, so let's see here. If you have anything you'd like to share, good wishes, happy birthdays, anniversaries, or anything like that, by all means, there's the email address right there. You can drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com, and I would gladly get you on this list and onto this show. So let me know when your birthdays are happening. Let's celebrate. It's a reason to celebrate one more year on this wonderful planet of ours, right? And if you have any questions for myself or tonight, or for myself or my guest tonight, please put the word question over there in the chat before you put your question. Makes it easier for me to identify. But you know what? We're going to open up, as I always try to, open up the second half of the show so we can get a couple of you on here to ask any questions of tonight's guest or myself, and join the capades here for a little bit. So I look forward to having a few of you on panel as well. And then if you have any hot topics or guests you'd like to see on the show in the future, I say it all the time, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. Drop it right here at canoehound@gmail.com, and I will try to make this show happen for you. So, yeah. So without further ado, let's move on to tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is an avid outdoorsman and family guy. His interests of climbing, paddling, hiking, and four-season camping has led him to share his adventures and tips all across social media outlets. He's been on the show here a few times in the past. Welcome to tonight's guest, Mr. Marty Morissette. Or should I say Martin?
I don't know. I saw the poster and I was like, he didn't use my stage name.
Yeah, your stage name. Right? Give it out, girls, for Marty Morissette.
No, it goes back to way back when I learned to speak English. When I was like 16, I went to work in because I grew up in Gatineau. So I went to work in Ottawa, and then everybody was like, "What's your name?" And I'd say Martin. But for whatever reason, when I'd say that, people would hear Mark. So then all the guys and girls out there just started to call me Marty, and it's stuck ever since. So
there you go. Well, that's cool. That's all right. So Marty, what have you been up to, man? Like, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been on the show. I know a little bit about you, but I'd like to get to know a little bit more about you, man.
Well, where do we start? How, you know what I mean? Like, so, but yeah, no, I'm Marty Morissette, as you guys know. For most of you guys that already follow my content, you probably already know a lot of my story. But in short, when I was nine years old, I met someone that was very special to me, who ended up being my outdoor mentor. And I grew up those early youth years, like from 9 to 12, just listening to his stories of him, like telling me all about like his winter backpacking trips in the Whites, his winter backpacking trips in the Adirondacks, going down the Ottawa River, whitewater kayaking and all that. And those stories really shaped a lot of who I became over time, because I was just so intrigued by it, and I wanted to taste of it. And when I was 12, I had bothered my dad enough that he decided to bring me out to the Adirondacks for the first time. And I went out for the first time. We failed miserably, but I just couldn't get it out of my head. So a couple of months later, we went down the Noir River. So that would have been May, and then August, the Noir River, which is one of the three sisters out here, as my first wilderness, canoe trip ever. And that changed my life. That literally, kind of is the genesis of how I got involved in backcountry camping. And it is also, in some weird way, 20 plus years later, the genesis as to why I make content online, because I believe that stories have a lot of power. I believe they can change people's lives. And I hope that one day, just like the stories of my mentor changed my life, I hope that my stories will inspire someone to take on the adventure and go out there. So, a lot of it happened then. And it's interesting to me how small little things when you're young will change the course of your life forever. Like a little phrase someone might tell you or something. And that's very much what happened to me. And that's just, what I try to do as much as I can.
Yeah, sometimes things like that just burn into your head, eh? Like you say, the smallest little minute thing can.
Well, think of it,
go
right? Like I was 9. Guillaume, my mentor, was 19, so he's 10 over me. And he was just, I was in a point of my life where I had no autonomy. Obviously, you're 9 years old, and he's just like a young adult, just going wild, doing all these things. And it was just very inspiring to me. Like the desire for adventure just became so burning to me starting in that moment.
Yeah. So Evan Lefevre here, the birthday boy, has come up with the perfect question at the perfect time. He says, since Marty has little ones, what do you find gets the youth most inspired to get outdoors?
The youth. I think so. That's a good question, Evan. As part of like what I did growing up too, like kind of like in between of that story, I did work at overnight camps, worked at Tim Hortons Children's Foundation camps for a number of years. And we took the kids out canoe camping, nothing crazy, just little overnights. But what I've found working overnight camps with kids that were between 9 and 13, which mine are now 10, both of them are 10, which is like the rare 3 weeks right now in their lives where they're the same age.
Wow. You couldn't wait. Eh?
I could. What I found is the interesting thing about the outdoors is that you can really break through the walls of what society asks you to be in some sense. So kids go to school, they go to daycare, they go to after four, whatever it might be. And then they're just surrounded by an enormous amount of do's and don'ts and rules. And my approach with adventures and going out has always been, unless you're not putting yourself at risk, there are no rules out here. It's all about exploring, the desire to be curious and to go out and to ask questions and to explore on your own a little bit. You're 9, 10 years old and you're just going to go a little further, right? And I have like very strict rules, especially with my kids. When you go out, like nobody, and when I say nobody goes by the water without me. And in order for that rule to work, you have to, when they ask you to come by the water to check out something, you have to go out every time, because otherwise eventually they'll just go out on their own. But but the water rule is important, especially coming from I'm an aquatics guy. That's kind of my full-time job. Like I manage an aquatics facility. I'm very aware of drowning prevention and all that. So that's a very important rule. Other than that, unless, like I said, like as long as they stay within a certain like range with me, just go and explore. And if you want to eat something, you show it to me first, then we go and explore. But it's all about getting that curiosity in. I find that this is what gets people out the most, because especially these kids who grew up not doing it, or the youth that grew up not doing it, they get out there and then all of a sudden there's no rules. You can be loud, you can run around, you can be barefoot, I don't really, you know what I mean? And it's about managing yourself now. So you give them autonomy. That's what I tell my kids often when they put themselves in a situation when they get wet on a canoe camping trip, when we're 7 days away from the car. I'm like, this is going to suck for a while now. But they learn, right? That autonomy, right? So now it's like, I think once you get that curiosity in and you make it fun, I think this is what gets them back and have the desire to continue to want more adventure.
I find it interesting that you mentioned something that came up in last week's show either as well, when we had Jolene was talking about it, because she's a teacher at what's called a forest school in Northern Ontario, up in the Haliburton area. And it's a school, or it's a schooling thing where I think one day a week the kids go out there, and there are no no's. It's like you said, it's all about exploring. And as long as they're not putting themselves in danger, let them explore and let them, pick up the toes, let them help build a fire, let them help do this, that, and the other thing, the things that their mind is so curious and they want to try this and explore, right? And that's a good thing. So I think that's a good thing that you got going on with your daughters there, the little sweethearts. And you know what, if you want them to love the outdoors, you got to let them love the outdoors, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've been pretty lucky too, because I have a wife that's extremely supportive and trusts me a lot with all of this. And maybe my background as a camp counselor has allowed that to happen. But it's, some of the stuff I take my kids on, a lot of people might wonder if it's too much or not. But I often tell people that when people look at, especially like this summer, I did some what appears to be pretty intense whitewater trips with the kids. We went through class 3s together and all that in the canoes. What I tell people when they ask me, is that you have to understand that when I'm out on a trip, risk management is everything. Like, it's literally everything. And I never make a move that I'm not 100% sure I can make it. And if I don't make it, what are the 7 other options after? Especially whitewater, like whitewater canoeing, there's more than one line. If you mess up the original line, doesn't mean you're doomed. You just need to know how to maneuver the rest. So, I mean, accident can happen, but I never take risks out there. And I let the kids be like, hey, you want to walk this one off or you want to do it, right? And they always get the choice. Sometimes they walk it, sometimes they do it. And then you slowly take it together, and it's been fun. One thing, though, I have to say, this summer we went up north all together. And I don't know that I'll go back for a number of years with them up north. Not because it wasn't great. It was an awesome trip. But the northern trip, if you're going to be driving 15 hours north plus take a shuttle and do all of that, it's a lot, number one, for an 8 and 9 year old, or 9 and 10, I should say. And the second thing is that you're up there, you know, swimming isn't that fun because it's never that warm to start. Even at least when we were out there, it wasn't that warm. The bugs are way worse than you've experienced them down here.
Yeah.
So it lacked a bit of camping. It was a lot of moving on the water, but it lacked a bit of camping. So, you know, going back with the kids and how to get them in and all that, understanding your kids, what they like to do. My kids aren't in love with paddling. They love the camping aspect of it. So after this summer, what I realized is this next year, we're going to keep it a bit more local, make the days a little shorter on the water. So there's more camping opportunities for swimming, you know, sandcastle, just to be out there. Because the last thing you want is to bother them where they don't want to come back, right? So, yeah. And we're pretty lucky. I mean, it's a pretty lucky thing to be able to do and share with, you know, my kids. I mean, I did that with my dad, and now I get to do it with my kids, and I'm pretty fortunate.
Yeah. Hey, just so you know, Jason is really excited you're on the show.
Oh yeah, Marty, yeah. Jason, you better come up later.
That's awesome.
Jason and I connected last year at the winter when we gathered together, and we really hit it off.
Yeah,
so,
when the Rat Pack went out.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's awesome. So you mentioned when you were younger, like when you were 9-ish, your dad took you down to Des Moines River. What was that experience like? Like, what was it a good trip, or
it was the Noir River? But yeah,
River? Okay,
it was a crazy trip. Like, I'm talking, like, what's interesting to me is now, like, as a kid, I didn't understand that. Now today, I really understand how my dad had no real business to be out there, in a sense, because my dad is not a great paddler. He's not a whitewater paddler. We didn't have whitewater canoe gear. I was kayaking. So by the time I was 12, I had already started whitewater kayaking with my mentor, Guillaume. So I went down the Noir River with my kayak, and then my whitewater kayak. And then my sister and my dad went down the canoe with a canoe. And yeah, it was fantastic. I'm just surprised that my dad decided to take that route, if that makes sense. But at the same time, from kilometer 83, I think it's called, to kilometer 25 to put out, is really a nice section for people that may not know what they're doing with whitewater canoeing, because it's so traveled that all the rapids have like really clear portages. So we portaged the whole thing, and this was my first taste ever of, like, in some weird sense, heaven, because the Noir River, like, the water is just clear, beautiful. It's all sand, especially that section up north, because I did it from way further north. It's quite different, but from that section down, it's like S's one after the other, just sand dunes after sand dunes, just like talk about the camping aspect of it was just so awesome. Plus the river just runs at 3 miles an hour on its own, so you don't have to paddle a whole lot. Like, it can be very leisure if you take your time. And that was super fun. And you know, a fun story about this, because it's going to be interesting for later, now that we're getting into it now, is that I share it with my dad, and I shared that story when I did the Noir River last 2 years ago, I think, on the channel as part of the trip. But my dad and I, one of the evenings, we were just stargazing, and it's one of those nights, no moon, no clouds, and, like, for the first time witnessing stars by the billions for me, right? I'm 9. Like, I had never gotten out of the city like that before. and we're stargazing out there, and we're looking for shooting stars. It's like the August time. Like there's a meteor shower in August. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, so we're out there just doing that. My sister's in bed, and we just started to, we're just shooting the shit. We're talking here and there, and I've always been a huge fan and a sucker for a good UFO story or a good Bigfoot story. I just love them. I'm not going to say I believe it all or I don't believe it. I'm going to leave that for the audience to figure that one out, but I'm just a sucker for it. I have always loved it. I loved it as a child. I love it today. And my dad asked me a question that he had with his own dad at the time. He said, if a flying saucer was to land right here, would you go in? That was the question that he asked me, and I was 9. And at the time, I was like, "There's no fucking way." Oh, sorry, I don't know if we can swear, but there's no way I'm going in there.
It's okay.
Yeah. So there's no way I'm going in there. And my dad was like, "You know what? I answered the same thing when I was your age, and today, I think I might go in." And it's interesting because today I have a very different thought about it, which is the genesis in some sense to.
Let's put that full screen.
Brit did a wait, there you go with the light here. Brit did a beautiful knife sheath for me, and she asked me what I wanted on it for the tooling, and I said, you know what, surprise me. And her and I and Tunis have had some late nights here at my place with campfire and all that, just enjoying, and we've talked a lot about UFOs. They knew my story, and she decided to add that little flying saucer abducting the tent here. And as silly as this is, and as like kind of like fantasy for me as it is, it also represents a really, really cool moment in my life with my dad that I'll cherish forever. And like that's what I said at the beginning of the interview. Like stories have a lot of power, and that's why I like telling stories on YouTube and on social media, because it just they've had so much impact in my life. And I think this is cool. This is like, I'll probably have this until I lose it, to be honest. I have no idea why I would change sheath, and this will always make me think of that moment. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Brittany's doing some really nice work with her leather craft. So keep it up, Britt. Keep it up.
Keep it up for sure.
So you mentioned that that's one of the inspirations too into sharing your stories and stuff on social media. And like, you're pretty strong across all the platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm not sure how much Twitter, TikTok. You're big on TikTok as well. Well, why? What is the true, like, why so many platforms?
It's a good question.
You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask it, but you do cover a lot.
Yeah. There's two things. There's two aspects to it. And I think it's important that we talk about this kind of stuff, especially in the world of, social media, content creation, and what we do. What I tell people all the time is, to me, it's very interesting, because the people that really know me, that have known me since I'm 12 years old, like the people that really know me, they know that they have a much deeper understanding of what I'm doing online. Because the reality is, for the people online that look at what I do, they all think, and rightfully so, they all think that I'm super passionate about the outdoors. And I certainly am. There's no question about how much I love the outdoors. But the piece of knowledge that nobody understands, except the folks that have known me forever, is that I'm far more passionate about creating. Like, when I was a kid, I remember it since I still remember the day I was in my buddy Frank's basement. His brother, who was 17, we were 12, pulls out a record from Blink-182 called Anima of the State, puts it in, like at the time it was like a CDs, right? Puts it in. I hear, I think it was What's My Age Again. I mean, like, this is only going to make sense to the 90s kids, by the way, but yeah, or for the 80s kids. But it's like that moment in time is the reason why I picked up a guitar after, and I wanted to be a touring musician. That, like, it was just like, whoa, I never heard that kind of music before. And that is the genesis of me wanting to be a creative person. So you're asking me why across all the platforms, is that once you start creating online, then if you're, I'll use a quote unquote serious, if you're serious and you're trying to make a business out of it, which is certainly what I've never hid that, right? The purpose of making content is to satisfy two of my biggest passion, to go outside more, which I've never been outside as much as ever since I started to make content. And it's to create, because creating is a very sole part of who I am. But then when you start putting that together, you're like, well, if I'm a little bit strategic with this, I can get sponsorship, I can get paid to do that, and that could be a cool sideline or a cool business in general. Just give me 1 second. There we go. My computer just told me it was about to die. I had forgotten to turn on the switch. Sorry about that. But once you start digging on the business side of things, you realize how much, for me at least, how fun that is. So I look at social media as like, how much value can I bring to people? And what you realize is the people that are on Instagram and consuming, or even like the same individual who's on Instagram consuming, then goes on YouTube to consume, then goes on TikTok or on Twitter, they're all different versions of them. And if you want to expand your brand as a social content creator, you don't have to be across all the platforms, but there is value to be gained, because I get very different value from different sponsorships and opportunities because I have a large following on Instagram, and I get different opportunities because I have a large following on YouTube. So this is more of a creative business decision I've made on my end. And then if you really follow me closely across all of that, what I've come to learn over time is how to take one outing, 24 hours, and turn that into 35, 40 pieces of content. So to bring value for the folks at home. It's always like when I post on TikTok, wherever I might be, it's always like, what's the value that the folks that are going to listen to this will be? Is it going to be just entertainment and funny? Is it a piece of knowledge I'm teaching them? So I'm always I try to be very thoughtful about it, and I'm super passionate about it. I mean, like, can you imagine 2 years, 3 years ago, nobody knew who I was in the world of the outdoors? Zero. Like, I was a nobody. And just through sheer grind of putting myself out there, learning the craft, becoming a storyteller, and putting myself out there, not only have I made a little bit of my name for me, which that part doesn't really do anything for me, but I've managed to create a side hustle, like a side income with really cool opportunities. Like, I would have never had the opportunity to ride the canoes that I'm riding today had it not have been from that. And I'm just so thankful about it. Like, I'm super, super thankful. I would have never had the gear that I have today if it wasn't for that. So
I think that's the same thing that goes with most of us content creators too, is just like you, like, I was just a canoeing guy there a couple of years ago, and I still am just a canoeing guy. I just do something that happened to catch on, that everybody keeps saying it's bringing the community together, right?
Oh, it's great.
But it's about finding a niche that kind of works for you. Like, I find it very interesting the way that you do most of your social media stuff, because one, you're a family guy. Okay, so you have responsibilities as a husband and as a father, and responsibilities around the house. You work, right? Yeah, you're laughing. Maybe you don't.
I do. It's the question I get all the time. People ask me all the time, like, how do you find the time to do this?
How do you juggle it, right?
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. One of the ways that you do it. So go ahead. I'll let you tell it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to it. First of all, like, there is a method to the madness. Like, as I've said before, like, my content creation strategy is certainly, like, thought out. It's a thoughtful process that I put a lot of effort into. But one of the biggest thing I've come to learn over the last 3 years, and this is not new from me, but it's like, I think self-awareness is like one of the biggest thing that you can do if you're going to put yourself out there. And what I mean by self-awareness is that we all have things that we're really good at and things that we're poor at, and that's fine. The talent that I have, like, if I had to say, like, what's my innate talent, it's one of two things, and it has nothing to do with creating, but it's the fuel that allows me to create as much, is I have an endless amount of energy, For whatever reason, I don't know why. I've never seen anybody outlive my energy. So that's number one. And number two, I'm extremely enthusiastic. And essentially that's all I play. Like, I mean, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I get up, I edit. The kids get up at 7. And I'm super enthusiastic about this. Like when I have a film to put together, like it's not a chore for me to get up. I get up, the kids get up at 7, put them on the bus, boom, I go to work. I come back from work, I hang out with the kids, I hang out with my wife. 9 o'clock comes around, I'll usually clock back in or whatever, and then I go to bed, and I do it over. And it's not about working these 5, 6, 7, 8 hours altogether. It's about, can I work consistently 2 hours a day on this, consistently without stopping? And then over 3 years, well, you're witnessing what I've built over the last 3 years just by being consistent a little bit every day. And
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of, that's how I find the time. It's like, it's literally who I am. Like I have an enormous amount of energy. I was just out last night on an overnight trip, right? When you and I were texting back and forth about the show. I was out on a trip. I didn't sleep really well last night, but here I am. I'll probably be hanging out until 11 tonight, and I'll do it all over. It's just what, I don't know. Like that one is impossible for me to explain. It's just who I am on that.
Right.
Yeah.
I asked that question at the perfect time because the Ontario camping couple here asked pretty much the same question that you just answered. So
Is there a show with balance? I mean, listen, it's because they're like, is there a challenge balancing personal life? Here's the reality. Other than my kids, my job, and my wife, like that's all I do. Like, let's be honest. Like, that's my passion. My passion is creating. Once upon a time, I used to write songs every night and play all the time. Now I make films or videos. Like it's just what I do. Like that's the hobby. And the only thing I do outside of like the responsibilities that I have, that I want to hang out. And then I do have some friends, but over the last 3 years, most of my best friends all are content creators now.
Mm-hmm.
So like you know what I mean? So it just,
you gravitated to that niche, right? And people with the common interest, right?
Yeah, because listen, the other thing too is that like the idea of like going camping for a living is great. Like let's be honest here. Like you look at like the icons of this of the niche. Like you look at Xander, John, Joe, and plenty others who do this for a living. It's very inspiring to me. Like that's how this started for me. I was a huge fan of it. And I was like, I think I could see myself doing that. And then next thing you know, well, turns out there was 100 hours a week to put into this to become any good. But
right, yeah.
That's the biggest rabbit hole I've ever dove in. It's like, I could do that. Sure.
Are you getting close to that point that you think that you can make an honest living off of
I'm not
creation?
So I'm not close. I'm not close, but the interesting thing is the first 2 years, I started in January 1st of 2020. I posted my first video. The first 2 years, nobody listened to me. Like literally, I had very, very little audience. And then somehow between 22 and 23, like during the year of 22, I started to really put together who I am. How can I bring value to people? Because a lot of like the first 2 years was figuring out, I had never filmed before. I never edited. I had never done any of this. Although that I had some like experience on stage from playing music, doing a little bit of theater and all that kind of stuff. Like I had never done that side. So the first 2 years was figuring it out. In the third year, it's like, okay, I think I kind of understand it. And let's see, can I be more thoughtful in the way I do my content to reach more people? And that this year 22 was a really good year for me. Like I went from like 2,000 subscribers to 30,000 on YouTube. Same thing with Instagram, from 2 to 52 on Instagram. So it was, I think I put it together. So I'm very excited for 2023, not in hopes of the same growth, but rather in hopes of me assimilating the information I've been trying to learn and see where that's going to take me moving forward.
Yeah. Amazing Outdoors with Nikki and Travis says content creation definitely becomes a full-time hobby, right? It does occupy. And on the same note, though, it can really burn some people out. If they go
self-awareness
too full bore, if they're doing it the wrong way and they don't see the growth that they're expecting, it could really be a deterrent to them, right? And sometimes you just got to put the numbers out of your mind and just do what you're doing and make sure that the focus is on doing what you're doing and getting there. Right. So,
Yeah, there and really, I think the numbers can be very upsetting, and they are to me at times. Considering the amount of time you put in, you want a little bit of success along the way. Like it's nobody doesn't. Um, but at the same time, it's like, how can I say? It's like really the key to the whole thing is figuring out what's the value you have to offer to the people that are listening. So very simple example. If you look at my Instagram, my pictures are garbage. I don't take good pictures. I'm not a photographer. I'm out there filmmaking. But what I do, so what I've realized for me is that the value that I have to bring to the audience on Instagram that looks at my picture isn't the quality of the picture, but the caption I have to write below. The story that that picture tells is far more important than the quality. And so that's really, you know what I mean? Like when I say like figure out what's the value you have to bring to people and how you bring it to them, then you can deliver on that. And that these little subtle details like this have really shifted the needle. Plus it's way more fun to work like that. So I don't take pictures. I take stills out of my films and it's like, oh, this tells a story of X. So then I can tell it in the caption.
Yeah. I also find it really interesting that a lot of your videos or your little video tutorials that you talk about are shot right in the front seat of your vehicle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's just finding time, right? That's making it work. Using what you have at your availability and you're doing a snippet, right?
Yeah. So I have like my own podcast too. It's called the Marty Morissette Audio Experience. Although it's been on the back burner for a little bit because life got really busy in many different ways outside of this. So I've had to be extremely thoughtful as to how I'm going to bring the brand forward this year. And unfortunately, the podcast is one that I decided to put on the back burner, but I'll definitely come back. I love doing it. At the time, what I was thinking about, I was like, because I didn't have the time to at the beginning, but I'm like, I drive 40 minutes into work every day and it's a straight highway.
Yeah.
Like it, Britain Tune, it's so funny. When they came to my place for the first time, they're like, oh, I get it now. Like, yeah, like, because they come up to see me, they're like, I get it now. Why you can do that? Like, it's a straight highway, cruise control. There's nothing. So I put the camera there. I have my little lavalier mic and I decide to kind of address people's questions. And then I take those and I clip them. And, yeah. So, but it'll come back. It's just a matter of time. It's a little boring with inflation, with interest rates that went up. Like financially, things got a little. It's like, oh, okay, I need to put more effort into other things that actually brings money in. So I'm being very thoughtful as to where I put my time. So I had to take some side jobs for construction. It's life. What are you going to do? But it's like, so it's just a podcast, like it'll next year, when things kind of resettle, it'll be next year. And then I'm excited.
I'm the same way. You got to focus on what really pays the bills, and then this is the playtime, or as you put it earlier, the side hustle, right? It's so many people have the side hustle, a thing that you enjoy doing, that you wish you were making more money doing, right? And not sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't. So you're an outdoorsman, and when it comes to your outdoorsman, there's a lot of different things that you do. I remember you one time talking of like your mountain climbing, or mountain hiking, or I don't know the proper term, but
it's I don't know if it actually qualifies as mountaineering because like compared to going out west or in the Himalayas, that's real mountaineering. But I guess it's the closest to what you'll get in the Northeast. So the Adirondacks, because to me, growing up was always the same. And that's what my mentor taught me, Guillaume. He told me, it's like, here we have the Ottawa River. So in the summertime, we paddle. There's no reason to go hiking and do it. Like we paddle. And in the wintertime, when the trails are empty, we go hiking and climbing. So that kind of became my motto over time. So I actually just came back from Mount Washington. For the folks who didn't see the video, I'm actually very proud of that video. It was very, very challenging to film because Mount Washington is just staircases straight up. We were up there January 5th. And if you look at the shots of me setting up the camera, and I have a 55-pound backpack on my back, and I'm climbing away because we're going to go sleep on top of the ridge. Above tree line up there, and I'm climbing away, and then I got to go back up and grab the camera and bring it forward and do all of the backstage stuff that, unless you do it, you might not really think about. But I just came back from Mount Washington. The goal was to get to the ridge line, sleep there above tree line, and then summit the next day. But the next day, the winds got up. They were about 40 to 50 miles an hour, and really above 60 miles per hour on foot. This is when you start getting tipped over by the wind, just a regular human. So, so this is so it was getting really sketchy to go for the summit push, and we were we call it socked in, like the clouds were all over, so our visibility was about 20 feet, and just navigating through that, considering it's the deadliest mountain in North America, we just decided to turn around and come back home. But winter backpacking like this is awesome. Like, I've done it forever. And
you ever had any real mishaps mountain climbing or like winter climbing or anything like that?
Nothing lethal, but I have had I've told the story many times, but it's a story worth telling. I've had pretty severe frostbite injury. So essentially, we're in the Adirondacks. It's March of 2019. We're in the Adirondacks. Sorry, February. It's the Family Day long weekend. We go up there, and the goal is to do like 6 mountains. So we climb up, and then we kind of stay on top and ride the ridge and sleep along the way. We were going to sleep 2 nights and come back, and we're out there like full pack again. Like winter climbing like this. Like I mean, I don't have super high end gear that are super light. So like, I can't get below 55 pounds. Sometimes I'm at 60, 65, just depending on the gear that we need. So it's slow moving, but we got there the first day, climbed up just below tree line. We slept there. The next morning we get up, and we put our boots on, and we kind of get all ready to go. And immediately my boots were frozen. It was a really cold night, hard frozen. I'm like, okay, we got to get moving. Right. So we get moving, we get packing, we get on the trail, and then I forget about my toes. And then next thing you know, if you know anything about winter backpacking like this, you're usually sun up to sundown. You're moving because it's so, it's 10 hours. Like, it's so small, and traveling takes a lot of effort and time, and you don't want to travel at night. It's okay to travel in the early morning if you get up at 4 a.m. because the sun's about to rise, but to do the reverse, knowing that you're going to go 12, 15 hours in the dark is too, that reverse is too dangerous. So anyway, we're 10 hours in, and we're stuck in between these 2 mountains, Armstrong and Gothics, for the folks that know about the Adirondacks. And the goal was to sleep on the other side of Gothic, but we had to break trail the whole way. So we're traveling far slower than we're expecting. And it comes to a point where it's like, we're not going to make it before sundown. So we're going to have to find plan B. And at the same time that this kind of conversation started to happen, like, for whatever reason, my toes come back. Like, not come back, but I start thinking about my toes again, because I hadn't thought about them for a while. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't know what happened to my toes, but all of a sudden, like, they feel really weird. We need to stop now. Like, it was like now, and that never happened. Especially the folks that go out with me. Like I'm usually the guy that you have to make stop. Like, now it's like, I've got to stop now. So we set up camp and all that. We set up the tent. I get in the tent first because I said, I have to worry about this. I think I made a mistake. And I take my boots off, and my 6 out of my 10 toes are pasty white. Like, I've never seen skin go this white. Like, I didn't think it could go this white. It wasn't black yet, but it was pasty white, and I could not feel a thing. The sensation was very, very weird. So I start rubbing them up, try to slap toe warmers on them. We fill up water bottles, like, we boil water. We put that into the sleeping bag. We put my down booties in. We go in, and that night was the most painful night of my life, in between 2 mountains. And I'm still quite far away from the car, because I have to make it back to the car somehow. And throughout the night, my toes were kind of coming back, but not really. And just like, for the folks who's ever had a frostbite, like, just like the sensation of the sleeping bag on the top of my skin of my toes was horrific. Like, it was just so painful. So anyway, so the next day, toes are feeling a little better because they had the time to warm up, but I still can't really feel them. So we essentially packed up. We were just, it's going to sound silly, but in the moment it was the right move. Like we were like 500 meters from the summit of Gothic. So we went up to Gothic with nothing on our back. Like we left the stuff down at the bottom. We summited Gothic Mountain, picked up our stuff, and then went right to the car. And that frostbite, I could not feel my toes until August of that same year. Six out of my 10 toes. And the biggest story I have, the kind of the takeaway of that I have that I tell people all the time now is two things. First of all, circulation is key in the wintertime. Like your extremities, you don't want to have too tight of a fit because circulation makes a big difference. So that's number one. But number two is frostbite is not taught properly in first aid classes in some sense, or when we talk about it. It's not something that you feel coming. It's something that you're aware that it's cold, it's uncomfortable, then somehow it goes away and you forget about it. And that's what happened with me, is that I completely, in the moment of climbing and just being in action, thinking I had warmed up, completely, it sounds silly, but it's something that catches you off guard. And so really be in tune with your body, with your extremities, your nose, your face, your lips. Same thing with your lips, right? You go canoe camping, you don't put lip balm on. At the end of the night, your lips are swollen, they're cracked, or what. Same thing in the wintertime. You don't see it coming. I split my lip on Mount Washington, and it took me 2-3 weeks to come back, and I didn't see it coming. So all of your, like, really being in tune with it is key. And so that was a scary moment.
Like you say, it could happen fast, right? Like you just mentioned a lips type of thing, right?
Yeah.
I was just up north ice fishing. No, I didn't catch anything, and nobody did on the trip. But anyways, we did a lot of this, anyways. But exactly. But I carry chapstick in my pocket all the time, like quite literally, right?
Yeah.
And my lips were chapped before you know it, right? The sunshine, the cold, you're always licking your lips to keep them moist. Yep.
The wind sucks
yeah.
all the humidity out of it, right? So anyway, so it's that's kind of like my worst story out on the mountain. I'm pretty lucky considering how many times I've been out.
Now I want to put on chapstick. My lips feel freaking dry all of a sudden, man. There you go. But no, you know what, Marty? So now I know recently you were saying in the green room that you got a little bit of flack recently over some of the the stuff you've been talking about merino wool, right? And like, you have your reasons for different stuff like that. And does this have something to do with the frostbite on your toes? Like, is that something that you learned and now you're turning it into something different, or?
Not exactly. It's interesting. So yes. So, and I was supposed to, I couldn't make it in the end, but when you did your winter camping, like show, you had invited me on, and then something happened with the kids I couldn't be on, and I re-listened to it after, and I was like screaming at the back of my computer, I want to get in the conversation. So it's interesting. So it's a bit of a technical side of it, but for me, the premise that I've had is that, and that I've shared on my podcast and people have heard me talk about, is that the promise that the merino wool companies have sold us on, I believe that they're oversold, number one. And I think that in the climate that we're in here, at least like in the Northeast, I would say like Quebec, Ontario, which is very, very humid, a humid climate, not a dry climate. I believe that in terms of performance, meaning in terms of like, if you're in an active moment, I'm climbing a mountain, I'm hiking 15 kilometers, like snowshoeing, like carrying some stuff. And if the goal is to sleep out there, merino wool is not only in my experience, there's actual, like the way the material work is not my preferred material. It'll work. It's great. It's fantastic. But the thing that people don't understand about merino wool is that it's what they call, I think the word, it's called an hygroscopic material, meaning it absorbs the humidity and the moisture in the air very well, and yours as well. Now, a base layer is key because you want that to happen. You want the moisture from your body to go into your base layer, which is usually a lot of people merino wool or synthetic blend. And then the idea is that of a layering system is that your own body heat will push that moisture from one layer to another to keep you dry. This is why I advocate all the time to stop walking with, unless you have to because of wind and because it's raining or wet snow. I never wear my shell because the shell traps that humidity and that gets you even more wet in the wintertime. Especially if you're going out for a day trip, it's fine because you're coming back home. If you're going out and you're sleeping out there that same night, being wet is a problem, and managing that moisture is important. Now, to go back to the hygroscopic material, is that merino wool will take its properties that it absorbs moisture. Now people are like, well, how much moisture? Up to 30% of its weight. Now, what does that mean in comparison to a polyester blend, for example? Well, a polyester blend will only take up to 5% of its own weight. So if the key is to be dry at the end of the day, which again, if you're going to cold tent, hot tenting is different, right? Like, because then you have a fire, you can warm yourself up in there and you can dry. But if you're going to be cold tenting the way I winter camp, merino wool, although a great material, especially great when you're at camp and you stop moving around, okay? It's just really hard to dry because it'll hold 25% more moisture than polyester. If you take a fleece jacket and you wash it in the dryer, you wash it in the washer. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you take it out, it's dry. It's literally already dry because it just doesn't hold on to that much moisture. And when you're in a very humid climate like we are, while you're being very active and you're going to create a lot of sweat and condensation and all of that, I have found that merino wool is far harder to dry. In fact, the reason why merino wool has the property that it's so great in the cold and in the warm, it's because it's that hygroscopic. Because the way it works to cool you down is the way your sweat works, meaning when you sweat, it's not the action of sweating that cools you down. It's the evaporation off your skin that cools you down. So the same thing happens with the wool. In fact, merino wool is far better in warmer climate for that reason, actually. So both will work. That's fine. It's just take it from my experience of like cold camping day in, day out for multiple days. And even like on my Mount Washington trip, I did, I on the video for the folks that have watched it, I show it. I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm covered. You can see like I'm dripping wet, dripping wet. And I show how to dry myself, meaning instead of removing your wet layers, you add dry layers over top of it. So I added 2 fleece jackets that I had, because all I had had my base layer and my shell, because it was pretty mild outside, but it was snowy, raining. I was super wet. I put on my 2 fleece jackets, my shell over top. By the time we got into the tent, I was fully dry, and I showed it. And that is possible with merino wool, just far harder. It's just harder. So for me, merino wool is great when I'm not moving around. When I'm sitting down and I want something really warm and super comfortable, it's great. It's a great material. But if I'm going to be, I'm beating the nail here, but if you're going to be putting out the way I'm putting out, polyester blends just are way more performance for that. So that's kind of been my big beef this winter.
my question about undergarments like that, whether it be a polyester blend or a merino wool, should it be snug? If you got a merino wool top layer, right? Top base layer. Should it be snug fitting? Should it be loose fitting, baggy like a t-shirt?
So as part of your base layer, okay, your base layer is not designed to keep you warm. It's designed to keep you dry.
Yeah.
And to know that, for me, the weight of the material, I need to be able to see through it. Like I put it through the light. I need to be able to see the light go through. If I can't see the light go through, it's way too thick of a material for me. My wife runs so cold, she needs 4 layers like that, right? It's just that'll depend on how warm you run. Now, should it be snug fitting? In order for comfort level and for wick moisture, like wicking the sweat off of your skin, the tighter the better.
Tighter the better. So yeah,
for that. But then after that, your next few layers, like I've heard Martin Pine talk a lot about like having loose fit layers after for the air. That's great. That does work well. I believe in the more technical stuff that I do. And when I say technical, like more in the climbing side of things, I prefer having snug clothing so things don't get snagged, as I have like my ice axe and my crampons, and I'm literally climbing at times. I prefer to have that agility with snugger material, but the base layer is snug. After this, it depends. I guess I would say it depends on what you're doing exactly. If you're crossing lakes, it doesn't matter. Like you're not going to be ice picking your way up anything. You're just crossing a lake walking, right? So it'll just depend.
Right. I'm slowly outfitting myself with merino wool, even though, you know what? Before the merino wool craze, I guess you can call it, because it really has caught fire over
the last 5 years. It just went off the wall. And I'm thinking, I'm like,
polyester, like you say, poly blends are what I've always been trained to use, right? I've got the poly long johns, I got the poly under like top layer as well. Even socks, liner socks, right? Made of polyester that are made for like precisely what you're saying there. Moist. I believe a lot of athletes wear that as well, right? Hockey players will wear, the undergarments being moisture wicking, right?
Yeah. And if just for comfort, it just seems to work better. But listen, I go downhill skiing all the time with my kids. I'm wearing the thickest merino wool I have. Like it's different. Like it's like if you're going to be doing, but I'm talking if you're going to go out day in, day out cold camping, it's harder to do it with merino wool. That's that's kind of, but you do stink a lot differently, by the way. Like, but it is what it is.
Is a merino wool sort of odor eating? it holds it, right? Yeah. Very interesting. Well, you know what, Marty, we're at almost 8 o'clock here. I'm just going to take a quick little commercial break, and after the commercial break, there we'll get into a little more conversation with Marty. I did post a link in the chat over there just
come on up, folks.
Moments ago.
I don't bite.
Come on, if you'd like to join us on panel here for a question or two, we'll try and keep it short and sweet if we get a lot of people in. But if we don't get many people in, then we could have up to 2 panelists up on panel at a time. So we're just going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will return with Marty. And stick around because we do have a swag giveaway tonight. Yeah. So we'll take care of that right after the commercial break here. And once again, I'm clicking on the wrong buttons. Here we go.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. All right, welcome back to the second half of the show, or as I like to call it sometimes, overtime. We'll bring Marty back up here in a second, but as you can see, I got ticking across the bottom of the screen a little bit of information for tonight's swag giveaway. We're going to give the question here in just a moment, and you could send your answers to cosprize@gmail.com, and you have until Sunday evening at 11 p.m. That'll give everybody that's watching after the fact the opportunity to to partake in the swag giveaway. So let's bring Marty back up because Marty also has a bit of an offering for tonight's swag giveaway. What do you got for us, Marty?
So I'm in the process right now. I'm working with a local talent to come up with my first design for merch. So since my brand name is my name, the last thing I wanted was just to put my name on a t-shirt. Obviously, I wanted
Martin or Marty?
Yeah, exactly right. But I wanted to. The idea came with the sheet I received here from Britt at Freak of Nature Co. And what I want to do with my merch essentially is to have like a cartoon version of like a moment in time of a story that the audience would know from my videos. And the first piece of merch I'll be making is essentially the flying saucer abducting a tent here, and there should be a version of me poking out and looking up sort of deal. So we're going to put that across the t-shirts. I'm working with a local talent who's going to be designing this for me. So we're probably easily a month away from the product, but once it's up and ready, I'll ship you a t-shirt, whoever wins essentially. So and I'll honor my words. So it won't be immediate, but it'll come because we're in the process of it.
Excellent. Well, if you don't honor your words, they always email me back to say, "Hey, I haven't received this yet." Right? Awesome. So we got a T-shirt from Marty, and I'll also send in a Canoe Hound Adventures decal and patch kit. Basically, what that is a bunch of Canoe Hound Adventures and Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show decals, many of which are reflective, which have great properties when you're putting them on a food barrel or something, or, in the back of your vehicle or what have you, right? Maybe grandma's forehead. But we'll throw a bunch of that in there and some iron-on patches as well. So for tonight's question, and if you were really paying attention about 10 minutes ago, tonight's question is, how many toes did Marty freeze to the point of frostbite when he was up there mountaineering? Marty, did you lose any of them toes?
No, they're all working, but it is the thing I have to focus the most on when I'm out now in the wintertime. Like they freeze on me very fast, and I'm very meticulous about it. So I haven't lost any toes, but they're not doing so well.
Well, yeah, it's funny, right? Well, just before we get on with anything, but so everybody, there's the question. I'll leave it on screen for just a few more moments. And then, of course, coasprize@gmail.com. You have until Sunday to send your answer in. If you get it wrong, I might let it slip. At least you've entered, right? So that's a good thing. But I'll let you know the correct answer.
And you'll get the first edition of the first ever merch from what I do. So
I'll have to grab one of them shirts as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
My wife says, "What are you going to do with all those T-shirts you got in your closet?" I go, "What do you mean? What am I going to do with them? Wear them, right?" I not only hung up, but I got them stacked.
They're great rags for when I do oil changes.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the old ones that I know I'll never ever wear again.
Exactly.
Right? So,
that's how my clothes go. They go from like being super, like I only wear them for work, to like I wear them around the house, and then I go in the garage with them.
Yeah, that's cool. Very good. So looking forward to getting everybody's answers in. So here we are, second half of the show here, and we do have a guest that popped into the basement. Only one so far, people. So don't be shy. Get yourselves in there and come on panel and have a great evening. Many of you know Marty. I'm sure you might have a question or something that you want to poke at him or something. So that's a good thing. So first person we're going to bring up here to join us on panel, it would be a birthday boy.
Let's go.
Tim, super good camping. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Great. Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday, my friend.
Birthday, because it's in a couple days, right?
It is. When you're 39, it's cool. Sorry, say that again.
I said, do you share the number?
The number
of your birthday? How old are you now?
39.
Oh, perfect.
39.
Okay.
See?
Yes.
So is that reverse, like 93?
You don't look at day over 50.
There are days that I feel like that, boy.
So what do you got going on tonight, Tim?
Nothing. I'm not cooking because I'm up on the screen, so somebody else is cooking, which is a nice change.
Wow. Yeah. So you got a question for Marty today?
I do. So talking about the merino wool and stuff is very interesting, and thanks for being so exhausting about it. Just answering all the things. I kept having a question, then it was like, nope. Having a question, nope. Summer. So let's go to the other season. tell me about materials that work best for you through summer, just because I lean towards cotton mixes, but I sweat like you were talking about. I look like
I
just came out of
sweat
the
a lot
shower.
too. I'm
So
a
I
heavy sweater.
feel like I'm carrying around many pounds of extra stuff that I don't need to carry around.
So so in the summertime, I honestly, I always, all of my clothes are some version of polyester usually. So like, it's like, in the summertime, like one of the things I love the most wearing for the summertime, because I'm not a huge fan of sunscreen, but I desperately need it. Like I can't go without it because I'm so fair. So what I like to wear is like these long sun hoodies. So like the ones from Fjallraven, or the ones from Outdoor Research, they're great, and they're all polyester blendy. So that's what I wear all day long, especially on my paddling trip. But even if I was hiking and backpacking, that's what I would do for the time that I'm active. Because realistically, when you talk clothing, there are two moments. There's the active moments, and then there's the when you're not doing anything time, right? So it's all kind of like polyester blends. Like, I got this new pair of pants from Fjallraven this summer, the Abrisco Light, that I love. I'm not exactly sure what they're made of, but they're not made out of cotton. So there's some kind of like, there's probably a little bit of spandex and then polyester, and then their G1000 proprietary material. So I stick to that. The long john, not the long johns, but the long shirts with the hoodie, and I even wear the hoodie all day long. Like I really can't take much sun because I burn so fast. So I just leave my hand and my face exposed. And then at night, what I try to do in the summertime, you have an opportunity to dry your clothes just because it's warm outside and all that. So I'll usually hang the clothes of the day on the clothing line, and then I have like a drier version. And depending, like when I went up north, I brought my base layer, merino wool base layer, because it was just nice and comfortable at the end of the night to be sitting around in that. But otherwise, it could be anything that's dry. Merino wool is great. It's just so darn expensive, and I have not, I get to be extremely lucky now because of my sponsorships to ride really expensive gear, but I did forever using like the stuff I bought at Costco and stuff like that, and it got me just as far. And I'm a big proponent of that, like a huge proponent of that. We can't, the gear can't be a gatekeeper to get people outside. It's something I'm very fortunate to be able to use, but it's so important. So, at the end of the day, I stay away from cotton because you mentioned cotton. Some folks that I know, they do enjoy the feeling of a cotton t-shirt when they're at camp. It's just comfortable. That's great if you're not active, but in the daytime being active, for me, it's like polyester blends, or they've just always served me really well.
All right,
cool. So that's that, yeah.
What about the things like you mentioned Fjallraven? The Fjallraven pants are all the rage now, and there's a reason for it. It's you shouldn't be wearing blue jeans out there, first off, because they're 100% cotton, and they're never going to dry if they get wet, and they might look hot on your ass, but they're not always the best thing to wear out there. But these Fjallraven, they have in some cases water repelling properties, and especially if you keep them waxed, they're a little more durable.
I talked about how I don't want gear to be a gatekeeper for people to get into the outdoors, but there is another reality to that. And that reality is that, like, at least the expensive gear I've had the chance to test out lately certainly do prove to be great. But here's the deal. So I used to buy these, the Feroci from Outdoor Research. It's a pair of pants. It's very light. You can get those wet. They dry really fast. Because I'm a long pants and long shirt summertime, even on my canoe trips, because the bugs and protection for the sun, as I said already. So I used to buy those every year, and I had to buy one a year, and they were about $70 when I would get them, because they just get destroyed out there. They get snagged on different things. And I took my Fjallraven pants, their Abrisco Light, for a season this year, and I'm nowhere near changing them. So sure, one is 3 times the price, and the upfront cost can be a problem for people, and I empathize with that. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are in the mindset of like, hey, I want to consume less, not only for for your wallet, but also for the environment and all that. Like, I want to consume less. I guarantee you the Briscoe Light or, the G1000 pants, they have so many pants. The Fjallraven pants, the Keb pants I've tried, they will outlast any, like I've bought North Face pants. I've bought Outdoor Research pants. None of them last compared to the Fjallraven. So on the more sustainability side, if you can afford it and that means something to you, I highly recommend it. I certainly do. Yeah.
Hey, it took me about a year and a half to just save for the extra expense of buying the Fjallravens. But I do find that they're a lot heavier. My go-to pants when I'm on a canoe trip are actually just my Columbia quick dry zipper convertible pants, the ones with the zip off leg, because they dry like that.
The Briscoe Light, they're very similar to that. And they have
Right.
the spandex in the crotch and the back of the knee stuff, which makes it super comfortable.
Yep.
I'm going to drop a little something here for the folks who live in the Ottawa region who are hoping maybe you're driving by or something like that. If you do end up going to the Fjallraven store in Ottawa, it has to be in Ottawa, and you say Marty sent me, they'll give you 25% off. Because I'm one of their guides. I represent them, and it's kind of like I do get a commission off of those. But anyways, the commission side of it, it's like 10%, but it doesn't really matter. The point is more if you want to buy Fjallraven pants, and it's pretty expensive. If you happen to be in Ottawa, you'll get 25% off if you just drop my name. Say one of your guides, Marty, sent me. So yeah, that may make it a bit more accessible for folks at home.
Save money where you can, people. You know what? Go to Ottawa for a weekend.
A lot of folks, I know Evan, Swifty Paddler, I know there are some folks from here, at least from Ottawa, but
well, and there's the Ottawa Outdoor Adventure Show in April, I think. So maybe that could be a combined trip, right?
Maybe I should go to that too. I didn't even know we had one.
Yeah.
Well, where are you, Marty? Where are you located geographically?
So I'm in Wakefield, Quebec, which is right across the river it's just north of Ottawa, like 25 minutes.
Okay.
So Ottawa, the city of Ottawa has the Ottawa River separating Quebec and Ontario. Yep. And on the other side is Gatineau. But if you go north of that, then you get to Wakefield. Just a neat little village up here.
Cool.
And,
Cool. There you go. So if anybody ever goes to Wakefield, make sure you
say hi.
Say hi to Marty. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of good little taverns in town, in the village. It's a cute little village. That's why we ended up here. We are really into homesteading and all that, my wife and I, and it's just a cute little place.
Is your wife an outdoorsy person too?
Not at all.
Not at all. Your wife is like my wife.
That's why I go out with the kids.
Yeah.
It's always been kind of father and daughter time for that. But no, I take her out like once a year. But the bugs is a big deal. And I don't blame her. She somehow gets eaten far more than I do. Like you know what I mean? Like some people are just more attractive to bugs than others, and I guess I'm not one of them.
we had the same wife. Mine's exactly the same. She is the magnet for bugs. I never get bit. So.
Exactly.
Hey, Marty, old man in the canoe wants to know, does Marty sent me work at Tim Hortons as well?
Yeah, does Marty sent me work at Tim Hortons
for the discount?
Oh, yeah, you get the discount.
No, just like Fjallraven.
With you on that one too.
Come on.
That's awesome. Hey, Tim, you got anything else for?
No, that's it. That was good.
Thanks coming up.
You got time. Nobody else is in the base, and nobody likes you, Marty.
Come on,
what the hell, man?
Come on,
I
folks.
thought all your buddies are letting you down here.
I know.
Right?
Jason should be up here.
I kudos for finding the balance and having the energy to do all the things. I'm amazed at the amount of content that you put out, the quality of content that you put out, and that you balance it with a full-time job and a full-time family. Like that's
Thank you. I appreciate
it.
It
It is a juggling act, right?
Even
to the extent of what I do, and Marty's putting it out there like daily, multiple times a day sometimes, right? And
it's going to change in 23. Like I said, things have changed a little bit for me on my end. And instead of publishing 52 videos this year, It's going to be, I'm going to publish 26. I've made that decision, so I'm going to go 2 a month. First, because I can afford that with the momentum I've gotten myself in, and the other thing too is they're all going to be experiences in the outdoors. I won't be doing talking heads much or like gear review and all that kind of stuff. The thing I love doing the most is to create immersive experience through my trips, like overnights, and trying to film it in a way that you can really feel like you're a part of it, which I feel like I'm getting better and better at every day, every time I do one. So I'm going to focus on that. 2 trips a month, a variety of overnight, maybe a little longer, just to make it fit in the schedule. And from that, I'll be making, you know, I came back from Washington. I had one video, like one 19-minute, 20-minute video, 8 shorts, reels, TikToks out of this, because every long story has chapters, and that's what I use for my reels, right? And then like probably 15 pictures. So that buys me time, right? That buys me like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then I do it all over again with the next one.
Excellent.
Good for you, man.
Thanks.
All right, Tim. Thanks very much, man. I appreciate you popping
Thanks
up.
coming
And
up.
have yourself a happy birthday. Hopefully you'll have a great day and
cheers, my friend. Happy birthday.
Quality
Salute.
time with the wife and the
Salute.
kiddies, right?
Have a good one, guys.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you later. See, all I needed to do was entice the people a little bit there, Marty, because the basement's starting to fill up now.
Good.
There
Well,
we
the thing
go.
is, nobody wants to be the first one. I get it. I've come up many times on the
Come
show.
on.
You don't want to be
A lot
the
of my
first one.
viewers are shy, but not all of my viewers are shy. I know that. Yeah. Tim, you can stick around for a bit there too if you want. Let's see here. We'll get 2 people up here right now. We got Rob and we got Evan Lefevre, another birthday boy. My God,
Let's
today's
go.
birthday boys here.
How are you
How you
boys
doing,
doing?
Evan?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for all
Oh,
this.
you know, living the dream.
everyone.
Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well, actually.
Good
How's
stuff.
that shoulder, Rob?
It was doing really well. I was getting real better, and then it's winter and we got the wood stove, and I've been swinging the axe a lot and not doing as much of the physio as I should be, and I think I've degraded it. So I've got a lot of work to do before I start hitting spring.
Lots of band work. It's yeah. I reached out to you when you hurt yourself, but it's like I mean, I'm gonna beat that nail the same way I beat the merino wool thing in, but it's like your shoulders, your knees, your hips, dude, they're so key for mobility to be able to get you out there. Even if you skip a season to buy 10, I implore you, don't ruin your backpack.
And you know what? And I
you know what I mean?
I took your advice to heart, and I was really contemplating that. And then when Sabrina has the opportunity to go to Australia for 3 months, I'm like, if I sit around here without her,
I understand that. It doesn't mean not to go out. It just means adapt it so that, so there's lots of downtime for you to be able to nurse it. Cause I mean, it's a funny story. The house I'm in 2018 to 2019, I built the house that I'm in, and I was bench pressing the day we broke ground. Okay. And I literally physically built my own house. So the day we broke ground, I was training at work. So we're bench pressing and I rack up the weights and I separated my left shoulder, because of the weight on the shoulder. It's very common when you bench press. And, if your technique is poor, like mine was, and I carried that injury here. It was a minor separation for 2 years before the pain stopped. Yeah. And so that's a little bit of my experience. It didn't mean to stop. It just I was and I was so careful nursing it, doing a lot of band work, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, be conscious about it.
Well,
the worst thing that I found out about it too, doing the physio, is that they said that the major reason that happened is from a prior injury from a car accident like 3 or 4 years ago, that I had whiplash that wasn't severe enough for me to do anything about it. I didn't wear a neck brace, didn't do nothing. I just had a sore neck for a while.
Yeah.
But with that injury, that just compounded everything.
You had something weaker there, not holding it in place the same.
Yeah.
Body's intricate, man.
Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous that was going to happen. I went to Faltsun there, Camp Fortune.
Yeah.
Yesterday I tried snowboarding for the first time, and I took a couple good bails, and I was like, I'm not sure I should be doing this.
Dude, I'm this year. Rosie, my daughter, she's 9. I took them both because I live right by Edelweiss for the
Nice.
folks in town. So like 3 minutes away driving, right? And so one of my daughter wanted to ski, the other one wanted to snowboard. And I grew up snowboarding, so I was one of the first rats on the hill. Like I was 12 back then. Like that's like 2000. I was on the hill snowboarding, and I told her, I said, listen, I'll get you a snowboard, but it will suck the first 7 times you go out, and I don't want to hear complaining about it.
Yeah, I'm lucky, man. I did some longboarding growing up, so I was able to.
Okay, a little bit of,
but yeah, man, I'm not used to like dropping to the knees and not slamming on your arse and stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I look at her bail, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm not doing this at 35. There's no way I could recover from that.
Yeah. I got to do my yoga though. My mom teaches yoga, so it's like
nice.
I'm kind of like watching her and my dad do it together. I'm like, I suppose, if I feel like being mobile when I'm older, I should probably
yoga is key.
Do some stretching.
Yoga is key.
I'm dead.
So I got a question for you, Marty, about creating content. When we talked last year, I had thrown a question into your podcast about the frustration sometimes of the trips and creating and losing sight of your story and stuff. So this trip that I talked to you about this year, they're going to do the Algonquin Park one.
Yeah.
I've started to create a narrative for it because I know the story I want to tell. But like I told you, it's been 40 years since I've been to the park. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the story that I want to tell will coincide with that trip, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So when you have stories, like when you plan your trips, do you think of your story ahead of time, or do you let that trip determine how you tell the story? Like, does that question make sense?
Yeah. Like, it's a great question. So this is one of those things where it's like, this might shatter the veil for a lot of folks, because it's not just me. All the content creators that are out there, I'm going to say all, but maybe not all, but the vast majority of the content creators out there that are really kicking butts, like that they're really performing well, their story is thought out way far more than you could expect it to be. Okay. Yeah. So for example, and it's interesting because, I'll take 6-7 takes of my intro, and I, I don't want to, I know how other guys and gals work as well, because I've seen them. I've been out with other people and all that, and I've talked to them many times. So I don't want to drop names, but the point is that I'll take 6-7 takes if it's not the way I want it to feel or sound, or if I was stuttering, or if I wasn't expressing myself. And on top of that, that script, although I don't personally write it, I know people that write those scripts down and bring that along with them to make sure that they stay concise. I don't write it down, but I practice it in my head quite a bit, actually. Like I'll be paddling and I'll be like, I want to address this point, and I'll just rehearse it a few times, just like when I used to do theater, and then you turn it on. So this way, it's like, it's about the art of how organic can you make it feel.
Yeah.
That's a storyboard. Yeah. Well, a lot of people work with storyboard. How organic can you make it feel, although it's thought out, right?
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, I'll answer it with my Mount Washington video, for example. So the premise of my Mount Washington video was that I was winter camping on North America's deadliest mountain, because that's just a fact. Like, it is what it is. It's a good title. I knew the thumbnail I wanted. So it's like, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and just tell the story of that winter camping trip. It happened to be out there, but I also had a B story. If you listen to the end of the video, I tell and that just happened to work like that in that video, where it's like, we can't summit because of the weather. And I get to tell the story of when I was 18, where we tried to summit in worse conditions than the ones we were stuck in, and we were pulled out by a ranger. And I end up saying like, hey, I could have been a part of that statistics. And if you come to Mount Washington, please be aware that there is a high likelihood that you won't summit even in the summertime. So that was thought out. That was before before I went out, that idea of that story was thought out. Now, what's happening during the day, the climb, the approach, the making the coffee, the food, I kind of knew it was going to happen, right? So it was more about like capturing those chapters, if you will, that kind of links together. So for you, you're going out, you have an idea. I'm assuming you want to reminisce about an old story, maybe your own creation stories from 40 years ago that brought you out there, and maybe is the reason why you do that. What I recommend is go out and film that. Share that story along the way, but also share. So you're going to have an A story and a B story. The A story is you traveling through the park. That's why people listen to it. Okay. Yeah. Your personal story, people aren't that interested in, unfortunately. It's just the way it is. But people are interested in the camping trip. So you take that story and then you kind of feed your own personal story to show some personal emotions along the way so people can connect with you as a creator as you go. And if you feel like it just doesn't match at the end, at least you have your story A that you can still tell
just the basic trip then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I always work like that. I always have an A and a B story. And then sometimes I kibosh. I just remove all of one. And then I focus on the reason why people listen, which is the camping trip.
Yeah, because when we talked last time, like I really took that. I quote you all the time now. Like, what's your why? You know what I mean? So
it's key. It's the only thing that'll make you work as hard as you need to work.
Yeah, and now I'm worried that I'm overthinking it. Because now I'm worried is like I've been writing, so I've got this narrative of how I want to tell the story. You know, because it's been 40 years since I've been to the park, and I've got some real good reasons why I haven't been there. But what I'm worried about is telling that story where the trip doesn't fit with it, but doing what you say, doing an A and a B, that it makes it that much more simpler, knowing that you
don't have to make that decision yet, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're out there, your goal is to tell a story and to capture a story. That's going to be your A and your B. When you come back home, your next goal when you edit will be to make that coherent and interesting to an audience. Those are two different things, right? Yeah. So, and then you've been prepping a lot for it, as you've mentioned. So just it's like as a musician or as an artist, and you're about to go perform, you can only rely on the prep work that you've done. So don't overly stress about it. If you've put in the time before, you're just rely on your practice, just like a paramedic practices before they go out on the road. The only thing you can rely on is your prep work. So if you've honestly put in the work, just rely on it. Like it'll bring you somewhere, and then that experience will be. The other thing too I've learned is that making the video that knocks it out is you're always going to make a better video on the next video.
Yeah.
So if you understand that, then you stop chasing the video, because you know that this is a process that only time gets you through.
Yeah, and we talked about that, chasing the video, when Sabrina and I did that Moon River trip, and there were times where we were like, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. You know, like it was, and that's why we had that conversation. So yeah, it's chasing. It's definitely not going to be there. So
you're always going to make a better video later, because you always learn something.
I find it also fluctuates too, you know, like sometimes you'll have a little like gear mishap or something. Like for me, it was like the GoPros. Forever, I just couldn't work with the GoPros in winter, but like I got those Enduro batteries recently, and it's changed the game. We could actually use them finally in winter. So that kind of stuff kind of stopped me from making stuff for a while too. So it kind of fluctuate, I find.
I hope I answered your question, Rob.
You did.
That was a good question, because I'm like that too. I have to chase sometimes, and it's sometimes better to let it flow and then create that story based off what you've experienced, right?
Yeah, and I think with the stress that I've been putting on myself about creating the story too. Now that you've mentioned that the A and the B, like do your camping trip, I've already got this narrative of a story I want to tell, and like you said, no one really cares. The story's for me, really. And I know that the people are going to be watching because it's Algonquin Park. But for me, it's a story that I know I need to deal with myself. So it's
man. And listen, I said nobody wants to hear your story. I didn't mean that in a mean way. I mean, okay. So for the longest time, I wanted to be an educator on YouTube. So there's the things that I know people need to know. but that unfortunately doesn't matches with what people want to know.
Want to know, yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. No, if I made a video about how to dry yourself the way I did on Mount Washington, it would go nowhere because nobody even knows they need to know that.
Yeah.
But you see the way I did it, I had my story and then I just pebbled it in as part of just a little piece of education as I went in. I fed it through the back door in the story.
Okay.
To offer that, right? So it's the same idea. If you're going to go A, B story, you've got the thing that people come here to see you, which is great. It's the camping. It's a camping trip. But then you can just feed them some things that are the amount of comments I've received from the drying, like obviously nailed it home. And that was proof of concept for me. It's like, just pebble it in. People don't know that they need to know this. They don't find it interesting. And for all the people that watch my videos that will never do that, that was still interesting to them because it wasn't the purpose of the video. It was just like that's cool. I didn't know you could do that. Right?
Yeah.
So, same idea for you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You answered the question perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Good stuff. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you popping up on panel.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Say hi to Sabrina for us all.
I will. She's napping right now, so I made her shovel all the snow today.
It's because that shoulder, right?
Yeah,
I also can't cook. I can't cook.
All right, man. I'm gonna make room for somebody else here in a moment. So thanks, Rob.
Guys.
Appreciate it,
Rob.
buddy.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
And we had somebody in the basement, but they dropped out. Hopefully they'll pop back in. So Evan, that leaves you there. So what if you got a question for Marty yourself?
I got one. I got a couple, I think. One being like, what's your favorite lake you've been on? I've got too many questions, man. I've been here since Père Extrême, man.
You've been here since the genesis of the you've been here since the beginning.
Yeah, man.
I was bad when I started.
It's so cool to see the it's what's really influenced me to get out there, whether I'm trying to film it or not. Like I watch your stuff all the time. It's like you were doing the cold plunges and everything. I was like, man,
I saw you do that.
To get out there, like every time I watch your stuff, it really motivates me.
That's
to get
awesome,
out there.
man.
And it seems like a neat ripple effect.
That means the world to me, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What's your favorite lake? That's what I want to know. Well,
my favorite lake is a lake that both you and I know, but I can't tell.
Yeah, I was gonna say region. You have a region.
There's no secrets on Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show.
You guys have seen the videos. I mean, it looks like it's Swifty Paddler. He had gone there. I think he told me 30 years prior, and then him and I anyways ended up doing a bit of a collab and went out there. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but that's by far the most beautiful lake I've ever seen. It's an hour from home. I can't believe, like, I grew up my entire life out here. I had no idea we had such beautiful crown lands. Yeah. So, and for the folks at home, like, if you look at, like, I think I titled it like our first wilderness camping trip together with my wife or something like that. And then the pictures, my wife and I were just sitting by the water, and then you can see like the water is like aqua green. You can see through it 50 feet deep. Like if you fish there, you can just look down and be like, nope, not this one. I want the one. Hey, he made it. And then you can just you can see them. You can hook them. And that's a beautiful lake. It's
a gem. I realize why, like it is a shame not to be able to just share that lake name and stuff. I remember the first time I went there, we actually had we went there. It was like October, so it was really cold, and we had set up the hot tent, and we had just a couple canoe out from the dark, and they just came up to us and they're saying like, hey, whatever you do when you go home, please call to try and get this place registered. Or I can't exactly remember what he was asking us to do, but I was pretty young at the time. But it was basically to get people to take care of it, because it was just a crown land spot where people just come and dump on it and whatnot. So he wanted to call to try and, I guess, and that's the tough part, is like mixing that crown land versus having it registered so that it's respected and people can...
It's really right now they take care of it really well. The municipalities and there's Thunderbox everywhere.
Yeah.
The road is maintained by them, although last summer they didn't do anything to it. It was pretty brutal to get out there. And I know that a lot of like colleges who like have like outdoor ed, like to become guides sort of deal in Quebec, they come down and they trip to it, and then they do cleaning chores.
Oh, cool.
If you've noticed how clean it is, it's because a lot of them. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. Because I met some of the teachers the one time I went out with my wife, actually the first time. They were saying they had been there the weekend. I was like, man, how is this place so clean? Like how? Like you've never seen Crownland like that. And they're like, oh, we actually cleaned it up last week. I'm like, with all the kids. I'm like, that makes sense.
That's great.
So yeah, it is what it is. What, do you have another question? Yeah, I saw you ask me which.
Evan, are you fairly close to Marty?
Yeah, I'm not too far. I'm just in Ottawa, so I'm pretty much like always heading out towards Wakefield to go and do all my paddling and stuff like that. I'm just always.
We met briefly at Derek's place, so the local retailer for Skiff, paddle.ca, happens to be a really good friend of mine, and Evan works for him here and there. And then when I get my boats from Skiff, he usually hauls them in for me because they come from just around Quebec City.
Derek.
Yeah, shout out to Derek, paddle.ca, if you need a boat in the area. But anyway, so I guess Evan was there last time I picked up my what is it? It's the Skiff Vertige X, which answers your question. I saw it in the chat earlier. You asked me which one is my favorite boat to paddle.
That's the favorite one?
It's so far, if I'm going to go, the thing is that because I film, I much prefer being alone in my boat. Like it's simpler, it's easier. I don't have to worry about someone else. The Vertige X for whitewater expedition trips for solo is like, and I have mine, like I ask mine empty, no bench, no thwarts, nothing. And I set it up for me with all my outfitting, my straps, my knee pads. I have loops at the bottom. So both of my barrels, I can actually tie them in. I can capsize with this boat. Nothing's going anywhere.
Nice.
Like it's just like one big block of like boom with the flow bags. It's a amazing boat. I really, really like it. So yeah, that's my favorite boat right now.
Until you pin it, you can't get anything out of it, right?
Well, yeah, that's always. But the key is not to pin.
Yeah.
Right on, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else, Evan, for Marty?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Good to see Kevin.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Good to hear about the mantle and the spatula. Man, that touches the heart. I'm glad to hear it'll be going on a trip with you.
The what? What?
Your spatula.
Oh, yes. I thought you said. Yes. Actually, no, it's right here. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on.
Evan, how drunk are you?
Actually, I'm completely sober. Peppermint tea tonight. I'm working.
Peppermint tea tonight.
Right here. It's actually on my mantle. Like I said. Look at. Oh.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So there.
True.
Yeah. No, I'm doing peppermint tea. Well, I do peppermint tea a lot, actually. Like I'm not the Dean Martin of the canoe world, for God's sakes. But yeah, there you go.
Nice.
What's the story on the spatula?
Yeah, tell the story.
Well, I knew he was going to be at the canoe symposium, it's the
Bill Mason,
Becky Mason, Becky Mason, Bill Mason Foundation, and who's presenting with Andy about their Round Algonquin presentation. So my girlfriend and I decided to go down there with Derek, and I wanted to surprise him with a little spatula and got a little book signing done. So
you carved this on a trip, though, right?
Yeah, so that was destined for some firewood, and I was like, damn, that's a nice piece of wood. So I hand carved it, and I mean, I carve a couple things once in a while and just kind of leave them around. And I was like, hey, man, I'm gonna go see Kevin Callan today. I gotta go and give this guy something. So
cool. That kind of made my night. I mean, that whole night was phenomenal. I'm not saying, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and all of a sudden this person came up to me, hey, carved you. Look at that. And I even got home and wrote my journal and told my partner. I went, and she goes, well, what was so special? I was like, well, someone carved, look at.
I was supposed to be there that night.
I was.
I know, Marty.
I
important that night.
You're too important to show up for some fundraising event. I know.
I went for a canoe actually on Meech
I'm
Lake that night. I went for a canoe paddle with my partner on Meech Lake through the ice right before that day, and then I was supposed to go to your place, Marty, after that, but I was too bushed. I couldn't do it.
So here's the story. I told Derek I had to apologize. I felt so bad. At the same time, Britt and Tunis and I were getting together to do an overnight.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, and I forgot about the event, and then I happened to have the timing that night to go out. So we were talking. It's like, oh yeah, just come out. We're gonna go and do this. And then I left on an overnight trip, completely forgetting about the trip. That's what happened. And then I felt so bad because then I got a couple of text messages from Derek, who's out there, whose sole reason to go, he wanted to hang out with me, and I was like, oh no.
No worries.
Anyways, it was just I felt bad, and then I wanted to meet Kevin and all that, but it just slipped out of my head. So, anyways,
we'll all meet up for a paddle soon. I hope it'd be really cool to all meet up for something for a paddle, or even a winter thing sometime
for
soon.
sure, man. We'll get it organized.
I should show you. Wait. Dennis, hold on. I got to show you the mug I'm having my tea in.
Okay. Hey, Evan, just for the record, Evan, I could use a new spatula. A squirrel stole my spatula that I made out of that I carved myself this year. Future.
Oh man, that's
brutal. Put it on our little camp table that was there. That went missing, and one of my Mio squirt bottles.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I can figure is the darn squirrel took my spatula. And
that's brutal.
Oh my god, the Golden Girls.
Did you wash it recently? It might have been because you didn't wash it. If it was a little.
Oh, it probably had some scent in it. Yeah. Stay
Marty, that just led me to a neat question maybe for you is animal encounters. I know for me, I just went out this weekend. We went to a little off-grid cabin, and I woke up in the middle of the night just hearing mice, and a mouse actually ate part of my dad's hand warmer. Whatever.
That mouse is in for a trip.
They're getting desperate. And do you have any do you have problems with animals? Do you find it's developing now that you're out there more? Do you feel like you're encountering more wildlife, or?
That's a good question. I don't encounter that much wildlife. Most of the time I'm with people as well. I do most of my solo camping in the wintertime. So there's just not that, there's a lot going on, but you just don't see that much in the wintertime. And in the summertime, when I go out on my wilderness canoe trips, mainly when I go river tripping, I'm always with people. So there's so much talking, you don't really see anything. I do have a cool bear encounter story when I was a kid. So on my, I think, second or third trip to the Adirondacks, I'm 12, 13 years old. I just told the I was just on another podcast. I told that story, but it's interesting. I was 12 or 13. I went back out with my dad alone. So just him and I, we get in. If you've ever been to the Adirondacks, there's this place called Adirondack Lodge, which is where you park. And usually people hike from Adirondack Lodge to Marcy Dam, which is about an hour and a half hike. You kind of set up camp, and then from there you go hike the mountains. That's a typical thing that a lot of people, you leave your tent behind and you go with less weight on your back. So we get to Marcy Dam and we come across these campers, and their food was just ripped apart and all that. And it was in May, right? Just prime black bear season. So ripped apart and all that. I was like, oh, the bear got into our food and all that. And we're like, okay, we're going to go set up shop far out, further. So we hike out, we find a camping spot, we start setting up camp, and there are 3 bears in the bushes around us. So all of these campgrounds are pretty well developed, a little and then you there's just bushes around kind of each circle, and I can't see them, but you can hear them run around through the bushes, and it sounds like a train is going through. Not even and I remember I'm 12, 13. I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty young, and I'm crying, right? I'm so freaking scared. My dad's like, what do you want us to do? I'm like, I just want to go in the tent. Thinking I'd be safe in there. So anyway, so we set up the tent. The kind of bears are running around they just kind of, I guess they left, and then I went right in the tent. I'm crying, fall asleep like a baby, sleep all night. My dad all night long, wide eyes, just
yeah.
with the pocket knife, sleeping. So I just wanted to be in the tent. So my advice for a wildlife encounter is, if you do encounter them, just go in the tent.
That's a good idea.
But pretend that this sil nylon fabric will protect you.
Let dad handle it. That's all. I always let that, dad's always got it.
No, I have a pretty good practice with food and all that. I'm very careful. Ever since that experience, obviously that hit a pretty good scar. And I'm very thoughtful about it as much as possible. And what I'm the most worried about is the thing I've never seen out there, but it would be a cat, like a big cat. That would be the thing that I'm the most worried about, but I've never seen one, so I don't know why I'm worried about it.
There's probably been a bunch that have seen us.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, far more cunning than we are, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kevin, you got a question? Did you have something for Marty?
Yeah, I just got one question. I'll let you guys go. I don't want to take over the night. So, a thing that happened to me today that all of a sudden got me thinking when I was listening to the interview tonight. So, in the morning, I taught a bunch of my at-risk guys, and what they were doing was amazing. I wanted to film them, but I can't for good reason, ethical reasons. Got back, and then my next gig was actually interview Robert Perkins, a world-renowned filmmaker that started back in the 80s, and you guys would not know who he is, but well, you should if you actually do film. But Robert Perkins, just a poetry of just amazing stuff he's done about preservation of the environment and canoeing. And when I was back in the mid 90s doing shows, like, he was the guy, and got to interview him, and hasn't changed a bit. It was amazing. And then I was editing and marking papers, and I had a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow. So I couldn't get right into the dentistry show, but I was hearing in the background and hearing you guys talk about, numbers, view count, sponsorship, monies. And I'm going to be the Uncle Kevin here. Like, have you guys ever done a trip where you don't film and don't care about anybody watching it except for yourself?
Yeah, everything before 30. Everything up until 30. I didn't even know it was an opportunity until well, I found out about, I think the first one I've ever found out about was this guy called Darwin on the trail, I think his name.
Darwin.
Darwin. Yeah. And that was because I was looking for ultralight gear at the time. Like, the notion of ultralight gear I never knew existed. Like, I had been part of that for camping for a long time. Then I got into his AT through hike, his PCT. I watched live his PCT through hike at the time. That would have been at the time, I didn't even know that existed. The whole world of YouTube. That's also when I kind of found out about Joe, and then a couple of people around after, and then I was like, and then that inspired me to go. So everything up until 30, I did. When I go out with my wife, I don't film anymore. Just not, it's my wife and I had our kids when we were 23, man. We were so freaking young, and we just grinded ever since, like, just trying to make it. So when I go out with her, it's not about making videos, it's about spending time together. I'm thinking about not filming some of the stuff with I do. The thing is, I film a small amount of my life. Like, it looks like it's my entire life, but I do so much with my kids all the time, like in the outdoors. So there's a lot of the stuff, day trips, that I don't film because I don't think it has value for an audience, but it has value for me, like, and the kids to spend time together. But yeah, everything up until I was 32. Actually, I started at 32 3 years ago. My channel, I had never filmed before. So yeah.
Cool.
And now it's more than that. The thing that I try to explain to people is that all the greatest explorers of this world don't film, by the way, just to let you know. Like it's so interesting because my neighbor here, he's a world-renowned, world-class river guide. He guided for 12 years straight all of his 20s all the way until his mid 30s. He has over 3,500 days on river. He's done so much, and he's now the head coach of Chelsea Nordique, which is like a cross country ski. He was at World Cups with all of his athletes. Some of his athletes goes to the Olympics, and it's interesting because we have conversation, him and I, about the fact that exactly right. Like, I am, compared to the folks that he knows and the people that he's met through his journey in the outdoors as a guide. Like, I'm talking, I think he did the Nahani like 34 times as a guide.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm talking like world class. Went to Australia. His stories are insane. All of my knowledge that I've learned from the river in the past 3 years all come from him. Just happened to be sheer luck. I moved out here. He's like, "Oh, you've got canoes. I've got canoes," and we just went out, right? And it's interesting because to him, he's like, literally, I'm terrible at what I do compared to the level of the people that he's done it with. Yet you have sponsorship and all that kind of stuff, and it's an interesting conversation. But the thing is that brands or companies, what they're after is just exposure. It's literally just exposure. So like the North Face only has athletes like Alex Honnold and all these like crazy athletes because they have the exposure because of their accomplishments. But there's a lot of other brands that they'll just have someone who can represent the brand properly and who can share their values and just like, hey, you've got a lot of eyeballs on you. We'd like to work with you, right? So, and that I'm that person. I'm not bad at the outdoors. Like, I'm pretty good at what I do, but compared to my neighbor, it's like, man, it's a shame I get all these sponsors, talent for talent, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So, but that's just the reality of it. Like, a lot of people want to be upset about YouTubers or social media people, like the way we do things. It's literally, it's just a new thing. Like, once upon a time you had a TV show on CBC, now you have a YouTube channel. It's just what it is. Like, it's the new thing. And tomorrow it'll be a full-on virtual reality version of like sitting down in my canoe as you come down, and it'll be a new thing, and then a whole new crop of people that are going to benefit from that will come out of that, right? Technology brings different things, so it's just, it is what it is.
Kevin, that question then, like, is that going somewhere, or is that because everybody has different reasons for videotaping or not videotaping. Like, even myself of late, I haven't been recording a lot of my trips because it kind of wore old on me, even though I like recording the memories, or I've got stuff recorded that I haven't even put out onto video or onto YouTube, right?
Yeah, no, it wasn't going anywhere. It's just something in my head. I just, like, typical me.
Mm-hmm. Right? No, and
I mean, I'm not judging, because I mean, I've been in the media for a lot more years than you guys have, right?
Yeah.
And if I wrote a book that didn't sell, I wouldn't make I don't make a profit, whatever. But or if I was on the media and I didn't talk about bear attacks, they wouldn't have me on. Like, I get that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it interesting today.
Well, let's flip the question back at you, because you spent most of your younger years doing trips and writing books about it. In that moment in time where you were the most active doing that, how many trips did you go on?
Wait a minute. When I was most active, what?
Okay, well, I would assume I didn't. No swearing on the show. We already established that earlier.
I will, you son of a bitch.
No. What I mean is, I'm assuming when you were 20, in your 20s and your 30s, when writing all your books, or in your maybe even in your 40s, I'm assuming you had years where you were far more outside than you are today. I don't know. Like, you have. Like, it's an assumption, and maybe that's bad of me, but like, let's put it this way. In the times where you used to go out to write your guidebooks every summer, because you would take I can't remember exactly your story, but like, you would go out in the summer and go on trips to write your guidebooks in those years. So when you were the most active, I use that word. I don't mean to offend you. Did you go on a lot of trips where you didn't document those trips?
No, during the guidebook times, no.
That's my point. That's all.
But when I guided, but then also I guided to make a livelihood, because I wasn't making much money on the book. So when I guided, I didn't document that much. But my editors were saying, "Well, Kevin, the solo trips are really boring. Could you be with people?" But there's a lot of people that got it I wouldn't document. So no,
Yeah.
there was so many times where I didn't document
Okay.
anything. I might have done maps and stuff like that when I was on the trip, and journals that I've got
Mhm.
boxes upstairs. But I've always had this thing where I have to be out for 60 nights a year. Then I'm happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you
And
kept
I haven't
what?
broken that. If you talk to my friends and stuff, I've never really broken that. But do I document all of them now? No, because it's not that important. I do really think it's very important to do a storyline to get people out there. This is why I like Marty. I like your passion and enthusiasm. I think it's fantastic. So again, this is not a knocking thing. This is
No, yeah.
right? So it's just the question is, it's like when I went from can't film these young people outdoors because legal things, then went to talk to the absolute phenomenal filmmaker of all time of outdoor experts. Like his average trip was 7 weeks every single year on the Back River in Northwest Territories every single year, right? And documented and real renown and everything else, right? And nobody knows who he is now, but then to go and then come home tonight, and then all of a sudden you guys were talking and you're doing about numbers, view counts, social media, sponsorships, whatever. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of like also this came out of my head. But with your question, I think it's a really good question. It's like, well, do I spend the same amount of time? Yes, I do. Do I do what I did before? No, I'm getting older. Actually, more so my buddies are getting older than I. My buddy Andy, he's had some medical issues, and so we've calmed down. But the biggest thing what I got criticized is I'm doing a lot of southern Ontario trips the last couple of years, and you're sissy pants, Kevin. You're not going to the far north. No, that's not at all. There's new Canadians, newcomers coming into the canoe world, and they're not going to the north. So I kept pushing my roots to the south. Eventually, they'll go to the north. So that's all, again, what you guys do. You create a playlist.
It's strategic.
Yeah. It's like what Evan did. Like, threw his papers back. That's what I do, right? So
and listen, the thing too is that I mean, maybe a lot of content creators won't enjoy what I say tonight here, but because it's breaking a little bit of the veil. It's like if you're a musician out there and you've ever been to a rock concert, I might break another veil here, is that did you know that the musicians on stage play on the click? Right? So these are the meaning like the metronome, right? So especially the drummer, the reason why they're so tight on stage is because they play on a click. If you talk about like any professional rock concerts and even like the amateurs nowadays, because technology is so accessible, people play on a click. That's why it sounds so good live. So when you go out and do a live show, if you're not playing on the click, of course you're not performing at the same level as these pros, because they do stuff that pros do. My point with that is that, like, if you're a content creator, you're a content creator. Like it is what it is. Like it is the gig. It happens that we're out there filming our adventures, but you remain a content creator. So you think about yours, like especially the ones that are performing well, they think about their stories. They think about the things that people want to see, the things that people don't want to see. And to some people that might sound like, well, sell out or whatever it is, but it's just a reality. Like if you're a rock artist, you play on the click when you're live on stage. Nobody knows, but you do. If you're a content creator, you are a content creator. This is what you do. You make interesting stories so people are interested into watching it. And if you have a good heart, which I think I do, I try to inspire people to do good, because in the world of social media, I get so many people saying like social media is crap. It is. There's a lot of garbage on social media, but I'm trying to add to the positive side of the scale, making people be aware that, hey, listen, you can step out of your comfort zone. You can try new things. You can explore. And if you go out in nature and you answer the call of adventure in your life, you will be rewarded with meaningful time that are going to follow you forever. And that's what I do. Like it's literally what I do. If you answer the call to adventure and you decide to carry those responsibilities on your shoulders of going on even if it's just a car camping trip for the first time, and you cook on the fire for the first time with your family, you will create meaningful times and memories that will follow you forever. So I try to do that. So people complain about content creators, and I understand why they do, but the people that are thoughtful about it, you have to be thoughtful about it. Otherwise, you're making stuff that nobody connects with. Like, it's creating content or writing music is more than just doing it. It's thoughtful. It's, you got to think about it. You got to work it out. You got to try it out a few ways, spin it around on itself, flip it up, get people to try it. That didn't connect the way I wanted to connect, right? It is what it is. And that's removing a little bit of the veil. And I've always been very upfront about that, because that's the honesty about the work that we do.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. Yeah.
With that, I should sign out, but like, I really owe it to, geez, all three of you lads. I really owe it a big ups to all you guys. I have a hard time, getting my own motivation to get out there, but every time I watch any of your guys' stuff, I'm like, man, I got to get out the door right now and get off this couch and get out there. And so thank you guys so much for getting me out there.
So, Evan, you want to know what my motivation is? You carve that paddle for me.
Hey, cheers. It's
we'll get together soon, Evan.
Yeah, you talk to anybody I know for all the years. That's my motivation. Okay,
love it.
That cool. Someone actually went out there and carved a paddle and gave it to me at one of the shows, and it was a really busy show, and I was overwhelmed because I'm a really anxious person, and was like, holy crap, someone carved a paddle. That's friggin' awesome.
That is awesome.
You know what, Kevin? You know what I think my hope for the world, is that I want to be just like you when I'm older. I want to have my 60 days a year, and I want to get out there. And then I hope I can inspire some more people who are younger than me who will maybe one day do that for me. And if that happens, that'll be great.
Okay, but you better start figuring out how to do that click during it.
Yeah. Evan, don't go away. Stick around for the green room. Okay. Cool. Kevin as well. I'm going to close up the show with Marty, because Marty had a nice little closing statement there.
Yeah, Kevin's putting me on the burner here. I had to defend myself. That's good.
All right,
it's okay.
Evan,
I insulted him in front of the world, so I guess that I deserved it. I'm not going to lie.
It's fine, Marty. Marty, what you do is amazing. That's no issue at all. Good conversation. Good conversation.
Yeah, I'll be in the green room there, Dennis.
All right, Evan. See you in a bit. Kevin, I'm going to drop you into the green room. Thanks for coming on as well. We'll see you in a few moments. All righty. Marty, sweet show, man. Sweet show.
I'm super stoked you had me on, man.
All good times.
Awesome.
I'm going to let everybody know this. Marty stepped up to the plate. Marty reached out to me probably about a week and a half ago saying that we need to have a little chat. And it was kind of something that worked out, because it was in the cards that my original show idea had fallen through quite last minute. And I hadn't even replied to Marty yet as to about, getting together for a show. And when I did, he had a thing going on last night, and we made it work to bring this content to you today. So, like I said, it was kind of in the cards. It was in the stars, man.
It was in the stars. I was sleeping under a spruce boughs shelter last night. So
there you go. Something coming up, people.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah. Really quick, Marty. In closing, where can people find your social media? Like, where can they connect with you for those that are not aware?
As we've mentioned already, I'm pretty much trying to interact with everybody throughout all the platforms. So usually if you write Marty Morissette in the search bar, I come up nowadays on so just look at that: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course YouTube. And I try to offer different things on all those different platforms. There's my website, martymorissette.com. You can go check it out. You can send me an email through there if ever you have questions. And I've got the podcast that's on the back burner, but I think I have like 24 episodes if you're interested. The Marty Morissette audio experience. If I have enough demand for it, I love doing the podcast. Like, obviously I like talking. So I want to bring it back eventually. So anyway, so that's kind of the whole thing.
That's awesome, man. And all that information's in the description below. So after the show here, if you want to just revisit the video again, by all means, all the information to connect with Marty is down there. Marty, thanks so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us, myself and all the
You're
people
welcome.
in the chat over there. It's been a great night.
I just thought of something else, because I looked at the comments here on the side. I do have a Discord channel as well, which is called Marty's Outdoor Adventure, Marty's Outdoor Community. If you go to my Instagram bio, it's one of the links that's in there. You're going to be able to get to. It's a place where I think we're at like 100 participants in there, where we're just a bunch of camping nerds, talk about nerds on Discord. If you know what Discord is, it's a fun place to hang out. So come join.
Awesome. Thanks once again, man. I'm going to drop you into the basement. I'm just going to close up the show, and we will catch up a little more in the basement there.
You got it.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, well, I hope everybody had a great time tonight. It was a good conversation. I really enjoy Marty's content, the little snippets. It's something that you could take with you wherever you go, because they're usually short little snippets, and you know what? You can learn so much, as he mentioned earlier in the show. Sometimes it's the little things that burn into your mind that that you'll remember. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but down the road you go, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is the way it's got to be. So by all means, great stuff from Marty. I hope he continues with that. Just as a reminder, we will be back next Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Facebook at CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show for a little sneak peek at what will be coming up for the future. You know what? That's probably about it. So once again, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button down there below, please do check that out and hit that. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please make sure you hit the thumbs up. If you don't like it, hit the thumbs down twice. How's that? But you know what? Just glad to have everybody here again on a Tuesday evening. And until next time, I remind you all to please keep the adventures alive. See you next week.